Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yugioh Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's episode review. This time, we will be going over episode 23 of Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's, the duel between Yuga and Neil, and dare I say, the best episode of the series so far. I do believe that. After watching subs, I kind of felt that I would have that feeling after watching it live. Man, this episode was just on a different level of the likes that we have seen previously in this show, in my opinion. This was just a phenomenal episode, and I had a feeling that it probably was going to be. Earlier, before this episode aired, I had a feeling that this episode would leave me with the same feeling that Kaito versus Yuma left me after we saw that in the early stages of Zexal. Remember, in the first 12 episodes of Zexal, a lot of people, including myself, felt that it was a very slow start, and it was, you know, kind of like an alright beginning to the show. But then once Kaito hit, once Kaito obliterated Yuma in that first duel, a lot of people were like, okay, this show just cranked it up from like a 7 to a 10, and that's kind of how I feel with Yu-Gi-Oh! 7's after this episode. Yuga and his team finally reach Neil's Providence, and Neil's Providence was pretty interesting. It was not really what I expected. He created this solely out of boredom, basically, and almost to give his opponents an advantage, or at least put them on level playing field so that they can get a little bit of a preview as to what Neil is, as to who Neil is, as to what Neil is all about in terms of what he believes and what his providence is, because, you know, everything that happens in this little world with the shops and the robots is basically what providence means, and providence is a very vague term that is used often in this episode. I mean, that word was probably said close to 30 times in this episode. You know, you bite into an apple and Rook says it's not sweet, but the shop owner says, well, who are you to determine whether it's sweet or not? I immediately thought of candy corn, you know, because Halloween just passed, and I absolutely love candy corn. Most of my friends and most people that I know despise candy corn, and it's kind of the same concept here, right? What's gold to one person could be trash to another person. And I guess to me, that's what I felt that providence truly means in this context. It's basically being able to decide what is what for your own self and not really with the influence of other people. And, you know, think about the Roman shirt incident. Roman says, you know, this isn't a shirt. One sleeve is way too long. And the shopkeeper says, well, no, a shirt is a shirt. And basically, it's just interpreting things to your own understanding and to your own satisfaction. And that's why when the duel starts and Neil's talking about why was the universe created, why are mountains tall, why is the sea vast, the answers to those questions is how you interpret them and how you choose to go forward with those questions. I hope that makes sense. That's kind of what I believe providence is. And if you have your own, you know, maybe I'm kind of explaining it in a weird way, and if you have your own way to kind of break that down, please comment down below. I'm sure a lot of people will be commenting down below based on this episode. But yeah, they're trying to get an understanding of Neil, and at one point Yuga gets a fortune and there is no fortune on it, and the shopkeeper of that, you know, fortune shop says that you have to create your own fortune and carve your own future. And that was probably the most similar thing to Yuga's road. And right, this episode, the underlying theme was all about Yuga's road meeting Neil's providence. And that was the moment when what Yuga realized what the shopkeeper finally meant by that. He started picturing everyone saying providence, providence, providence. And then we have this really trippy scene where Yuga is flying through the sky with the Sevens Road archetype. Sevens Road Magician, Sevens Road Witch, and Sevens Road Mage. And then we see the massive Blue Eyes White Dragon flying above Yuga. And I'm not sure if that was supposed to symbolize Otis, because remember, Otis was the one that put him on this road, and he had to defeat Otis and ultimately Otis's Blue Eyes White Dragon to install Rush Duels. I don't know if that symbolizes that Yuga might be gaining the aid of Blue Eyes White Dragon in the future. Maybe he will be getting Blue Eyes White Dragon from Otis to use alongside his Sevens Road Magicians. I'm not really sure. Maybe Yuga's ultimate monster, his maximum summoning, will have to do with Blue Eyes White Dragon. I don't know. I don't know really what that scene was foreshadowing, but I thought it was interesting that I think Yuga made the connection between Providence and his own roads. And right when that scene ends, he talks about how excited he is to duel Neil, and then he walks through these doors, and he's claiming that he fully understands Neil's Providence, and he fully understands Neil, which is so ironic because he really doesn't. And that confidence and that excitement ultimately is what gets him pretty much obliterated in the duel against Neil. And while that's going on, and of course we're leading up to the duel and the maximum summoning that I'm sure everyone wants me to give my thoughts on, we have Neil doing his own thing. And the buildup in this episode was phenomenal because we see Neil coding, trying to understand more about Rush dueling, and he's comparing it to the Goha duels, which we all know is the Master duels. And he's basically talking to himself and to Sebastian and saying, you know, something doesn't make sense. And he keeps having these moments of shock where he realizes he's being drawn to Yuga's road. And he's being drawn to Yuga's ability to carve a path forward when there is no path. And Yuga's road meeting with Neil's Providence is what leads to maximum summoning. And that's probably my favorite concept of this episode, that without Yuga, Neil is never going to create this next step of dueling, but because he was inspired by Yuga's ability to carve a path forward, as we've seen since this arc with Neil and his minions has began, we've seen Neil have a lot of respect to, and even maybe a little bit of admiration towards Yuga. I mean, we've noted the parallels between those two characters, and because of Yuga's ability to carve a path, carve a new path forward, that's what allows Neil to eventually create maximum summoning, and being drawn to Yuga's road is what inspires him to code that in. Top of Hexagon wants to meet with Neil, and Top of Hexagon is basically staging a coup and wants to overthrow Neil from his position of power so that they can be the ones to stop Yuga, and they can be the ones to get the credit for basically collecting the data on Yuga and Rush Duels to probably suit their own benefits. And what was great is they said, you know, it was a unanimous decision, and Neil obviously knows Mimi from when Mimi and Yugioh dueled, and Mimi literally visited Neil to ask him to duel one of Yuga's team, says, but there's one of you missing. And we get the shot of Mimi on the Goha roof really contemplating things and saying that to herself, basically inner monologuing, that she just did not feel that it was right. Which lines up with what we know about Mimi. It really does. I don't think Mimi wants to overthrow anyone. Mimi is really focused on growing herself and climbing up the corporate ladder, but in appropriate means to what she believes is right. And at the time, she believed stopping Rush Duels and stopping Yuga was right when we first meet her, and I think she still believes that to a degree, but she does not believe that overthrowing Neil without any base for it is right. So Mimi sticks to her principles and basically telling Top of Hexagon, no, I'm not doing this. And the rest of Top of Hexagon, when Neil brings that up, just says, yeah, well, we're going to get rid of her after we get rid of you. So they have no camaraderie for Mimi in this situation. They are ready to toss her to the curb just as quickly as they are ready to toss Neil. Neil begins his duel against Top of Hexagon. We don't see this duel. It is just heavily implied that Neil absolutely obliterates every single member of Top of Hexagon. We see the 5th card fall to the ground, and everyone on the team is collapsed. And Neil has just destroyed every single member of Top of Hexagon in a 5-on-1 duel. How insane. So that already sets the stage for what is about to happen when Neil and Yuga finally come face to face on the bridge, which was a great setting for this duel. And Neil, at the start of the duel, says you have a 0.001% chance of winning. And we've seen that calculated before. I feel like that was calculated when Yuga and Otis dueled. I know the percentages have been brought up before, and Yuga has said on multiple times, as long as you have a 1% chance, you still have a 1% chance, and I'm going to take that chance. But there was a different feeling in this duel, right? That was never really brought up. Yuga, from the beginning, looked kind of nervous. I think he said like 0 when Neil said your odds are basically 0. Like you could tell all the momentum was with Neil. And Neil uses a Cyburst deck. Femtron was a monster. All these monsters reminded me of Bitron, which was obviously a monster that Yusaku Fujiki from the last series Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains used. It would have been really cool to see Bitron, or a card that Playmaker did use. But he uses a level 4, a level 3, a level 2, and a level 1 monster. And that, I guess, sets the stage for the maximum. He also used Trap Hole, which was another OG trap card, one that's as old as the beginning of Yu-Gi-Oh!, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game itself, and he sets the stage for the maximum summoning. Now, at the time of recording this, we still don't know really what maximum summoning is. Obviously, we know that there are monsters in this world, and eventually in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush Duel game, that have maximum on their card. This monster, the Y-Dragon monster, which is, by the way, one of the coolest summonings and one of the biggest monsters that we have seen in the history of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. I mean, this monster rivaled the size of Obelisk the Tormentor, of Slifer the Sky Dragon. This monster was massive and one of the most intimidating, awesome-looking monsters I have ever seen in my life. The three-headed dragon, and when Neil summons it, you can see Yuga's terrified, you can see the team's terrified, and one of my favorite things is Neil just sends 3 cards to the grave, the 3 heads obliterate Sevens Road Magician, and then they just attack with a Ragnarok Tri-Strike, and, Yuga is screaming as he is burning up in the flames, his life point's at 0, and he just mutters, what the hell was that? And Neil goes, maximum Shogun, and then the episode just ends. And man, it was a chilling last 3 minutes. And the musical score when this was happening was also phenomenal. The entire build up to this moment, you could tell it just felt different than your previous episodes. The build up was great. And you knew something, even if you didn't know that there was a new summoning mechanic coming in this episode, which, of course, me and many others were aware of, you could just tell that something awe-inspiring was about to happen. That the stage was being set the entire episode, even after Neil defeated the top of Hexagon members as quickly as he did, and you saw the damage that it caused in Solid Vision, you were just like, okay, something huge is coming. It's like in the Jurassic Park movies when you hear the footsteps and you see the water in the cup shaking on the table and you're like, all right, a massive dinosaur is coming. That's exactly how it felt leading up to that maximum summoning. But yeah, he used a maximum card and he used 2 other cards, and it looks like they combined, and that's what allowed the maximum attack points to go into effect, rather than, I think it was 2,000 attack points that was on that card. So we still have a lot to learn about maximum summoning. There hasn't been any sort of official announcement from the Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG in the sense of what that is in the Rush Duel game. It's probably going to be a while before that even comes to Rush Duels in the OCG. But man, that is a moment that I will definitely be replaying over and over and over. I think the last time a protagonist got smacked that badly was probably when Yuya dueled Jack Atlas at the beginning of the Synchro arc. I remember that duel was very quick, and Jack wiped the floor with him. Yuma went flying off of his D-wheel. That was probably the last time, genuinely, that a protagonist got beaten this badly in a matter of 3 turns, in a matter of half an episode, where it just felt like he was completely overwhelmed. Again, a la Kaito Yuma at the beginning of Zexal. And we know in the next episode that Yuga, is shaken up and is not meeting with Rook, Gakuto, and Roman, and Rook, Gakuto, and Roman are going to get themselves in a little bit of trouble because they are going to have to duel 3 copies of Otis, and we also know from the preview that one of my favorite monsters ever, Red Eyes Black Dragon, is going to be appearing. So we just had this episode with the maximum summoning. We have next episode, which is going to feature a 3v3 and Red Eyes Black Dragon, potentially, definitely Blue Eyes again, and maybe even Dark Magician, if that's the ace of the 3rd Otis. So, guys, I just feel like this show, similarly to how I felt when Yuma versus Kaito happened in Zexal, I feel like this show has rounded a corner, and Neil is the first character in this show that there was no comedy. There was no comedic moments. There was just deep monologuing about the world, about life, and that is the character that this show has definitely needed to balance out the surreal comedy. And yes, comedy is still going to be a focal point of the show, and I've quite enjoyed that. I don't have an issue with that, but I'm just happy that there is a character that we can look at every so often that's going to ground the cast and ground the viewer back into the grim reality of what is truly going on. And man, if every monster is that big, if every maximum summoning has a monster that is that big, we are going to see more and more amazing summonings. And remember, Yuga has that massive mecha that is seen in the opening. Maybe now we know how that's going to work. Maybe that will be a maximum summoning that will go up against Neil's dragon in the future. But who knows, guys? As you can tell, I am absolutely giddy talking about this episode. This was one of the best episodes I have seen a Yu-Gi-Oh anime do. One of the best in probably the last 5 to 10 years. 10 years might be a little bit of an overstatement, but I just thought this episode was on a different level, not only for Sevens, but for most Yu-Gi-Oh episodes. This was a phenomenal episode. But let me know if you're as high on this one as I am. Let me know if you're as high on Neil and maximum summoning as I am. Or maybe if you disagree with me. I'd love to hear all of your thoughts down below. But thank you all so much for watching. And a special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons, Horace Maye, Goosey Q, Panther J, Blue Maiden 28, Jarrett Buller, and Aura Dragon. And to my Diamond tier patrons, Jesse Wood, Latrell Smith, Pegasus Seiya, and Anime Kaput, and to my Egyptian God tier patrons, Stella Sky, Chase Connelly, and 10th Emperor. Thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon and who is a YouTube channel member. You guys help me out tremendously, and I would not be here without all of you. Thank you to everyone who watches and supports my videos. I stream on Twitch, link down below for that, link down below for all my socials. Follow me if you would like. Thank you all so much for watching. I will talk to you down below, and I hope you have an amazing day.